Welcome to our little podcast to talk about Counter-Strike team composition, teams, how to build one. I'm here with Lucas gla1ve
Thank you.
from ENCE.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Just had my second child now here at boot camp with the ENCE office. And my first time doing like a podcast thingy.
Okay. So 3 more and you have a team.
Yeah, that's true actually. Three more.
You can
Maybe I can go with some other pro players and talk to them if they want to collaborate with the team.
Yeah, I'm sure there would be already enough, amongst the players out there that you could already make multiple teams, I would guess.
Almost, I think. I mean, Sipix has one.
Dupree has
Dupree has two.
Oh, 2?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
have 2. Sonic has 2.
Okay.
So, maybe we got something going.
Okay. There's a team already there.
Yeah.
Even with some substitutes.
Probably it will be mixed between girls and boys, right? It's not only boys.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's fine.
That works too.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, I think we should start this off by going down the memory lane a bit. Both of us have played some Counter-Strike back in the day. When did you start playing CS?
Oh, when I started playing CS, now I'm 29. I probably started when I was around 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
About that age, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, 11 maybe.
So close to 20 years?
Yeah, close to 20 years.
When you put it like that, it sounds a bit dramatic,
That's
right?
actually crazy. Yeah, it's crazy to think about.
First time I played Counter-Strike was 1998.
What game was this?
This was CS beta something.
Yeah, okay.
3.2 or whatever.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's 3 years after I was born.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So it was like that back then it was a mod for Half-Life basically, just made by 2 high school students.
Okay.
It's kind of miraculous to think about where it's all taken us, right?
So almost as good as CS2 back then.
Close to. Close to. Yeah. M4 had a zoom.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Empire Zoom.
Yeah. Also, the first version I tried of CS, there was a separate buy menu for bullets. So you needed to know which caliber of bullets went into which weapon.
Okay.
And
that's crazy.
I always kept buying the wrong kind.
Yeah. So you didn't have any bullets.
Yeah.
So it was a tough game for you.
It was very frustrating. I liked playing Quake back then.
Yeah.
But hey, we're not talking about history here. Let's talk
yeah.
about teams and how to build teams. What was your first? Like, could you remember putting together your first team or joining your first team when you were young?
I mean, I remember some things at least. I remember I played a lot with some Danish guys called MSL, Nille, Pimp back then. Me and those guys played a lot together. Before this, I was also playing a little bit with Device, just casual, not really in a team. One of the first like really good teams I remember joining was in CS Source, and it was with Ragin, who is now the coach of Tricked, who was the former coach of TSM. And I don't remember exactly who all of us were, but I remember Ragin was the in-game leader, and he was one of the first true IGLs I started playing with.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was how did you get connected to these guys? Like through IRC or?
Yeah, I mean, we had IRC back then, and I think we were using a lot to play gathers. So that could be one thing, and we also just played a lot of probably 10 mans together. Probably was mainly from IRC. It's a good question. So long time ago, and I don't even really remember. Yeah. But of course, we used IRC for some gathers. Like you sign up, like when there's 10 players, then you start with one guy is picking players, and then you have a second guy who is also picking players, and then there's 5 against 5, right?
Yeah.
This was pretty funny.
Yeah. We used to do that in the Finnish scene as well. We used to have RC channels that we would make gathers in, and that exactly like we used a bot, I think, even to like generate the matches. I think it even made I believe it even had like a leaderboard thing.
Yeah, it had. Yeah, that had leaderboard. I think we even had a small amount of prize money and stuff for the leaders, like the first place. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah. And then MSL, he also did the Casual Cup, which was something he did every weekend, like, was it Friday and Saturday, I think? So most of my Fridays when I was around 15 years old, I was using on playing Casual Cups with those guys. And that was pretty fun.
Yeah, for the younger audience, IRC is basically Discord, but from like the early days, but doesn't have a You can't do like voice or VoIP on the
just
on RC, just writing. But fundamentally, like similar idea.
Yeah.
From back in the day.
That was also where you search practice and stuff like this.
True.
Back then.
True.
That's fun thing.
Yeah. And everyone was bragging who has the biggest RC channel. That was like the social media of the. When you think about it, teams had their own RC channels, and there were people there.
Yeah. That's right. Long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah, that was many moons ago. Moons ago. But yeah, no, pretty big names. But if you think about now, like in the great scheme of things, the people that you already played early on in your career. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I also remember because we had CS Source and CS 1.6 back then, and we had these Danish local tournaments around Denmark. One was in the other side of Denmark, not Copenhagen, but Jutland, in Open Row, I think. And this was there every year, and Copenhagen Games we also had. So I had a couple of tournaments, and this was kind of the biggest bonding between the Danish teams, I would say. This is where you could show that you are the best Danish team. And I remember also sitting behind Sonic, watching him playing 1.6 together with MTW and stuff like this. And it was because back then, of course, this was kind of my idols, right? I was looking up to them a lot. Even though I played Source, I think it was nice to see these guys who was doing so good in 1.6. And of course, I also had some idols in CS Source that I looked up to.
Yeah. When you think about back then, can you think of things that were like the biggest issues why those teams maybe disbanded or people got kicked or left, Because I can remember pretty well that when I think back now, some of those reasons were probably pretty ridiculous. Fights that may have happened back then. I'm sure, like especially younger players can relate to those issues even today on the things that may have occurred in the teams.
I know that there were some of the older players was having a tough time because the money wasn't really there back then. Yeah. So it was tough to them to keep on playing because you had to be in one of the really best teams in the world to be able to be paid amount that make sure that you didn't have a job. But I also remember some of the young guns like me, Nille, MSL, Pimp, and some other guys. There was some fights in between here and there. And that was pretty funny, I would say, when you think about it now. So of course there could be something with age and money, but there could also be something with some drama between the young kids. That was making people disband.
Yeah, some of the things you can't even say out loud. It's too embarrassing to us.
That's true.
But yeah, it can be sometimes, especially when you're young. Of course, like hormones can be running a bit high.
That's true.
And temper might not be long enough, for people to kind of understand differences between people and their social backgrounds and things of that nature.
And just the thing about taking critique, right?
Yeah.
It's such an essential part of playing CS. And if you're not good at taking critique, there can be some drama really quick, right?
If you're not good at giving critique.
Also this. It goes like hand in hand.
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Both are really important.
Yeah. And especially in heat at the moment, some people handle certain pressured situations differently. So you also have to pick and choose sort of how do you handle certain people in certain moments and how do you talk about problems, issues.
Yeah, I like to talk about it in front of the group, or do you take them aside and talk about it one-on-one? Do you talk about it during the practice itself, or do you write it down and talk about it after? All these things is something you have to take into consideration when you have with young guns.
Yeah, for sure. Even the more
even the more experience. That's true.
Yeah. Let's have a blank canvas, like empty canvas. Basically, let's imagine that we're building a team. What are the first things then? Let's imagine you're the IGL of that team.
Okay.
What are the first things you start thinking of when you're starting to put together a team?
I mean, maybe in the past it would be different, but now I would probably say talent. Like in the current state of CS, the most important part is that you have talented players. You're not gonna get far with good friendship and just having fun together. That's not going to get you far in the current days. So talent would be my first choice. That's the biggest part. The people who are good at shooting, good at killing, probably young, working hard, stuff like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's imagine there's players that are like in a similar-ish level talent-wise. Yeah. What are the next attributes for you to consider in the player?
Then I would probably say communication could be one. Also, I think how they handle themselves, how they think about themselves, how they are, how do you kind of say it, like how they interact with other people. I think this is also pretty important that you have some social skills. So yeah, probably social skills I would say would be my after talent would be pretty important for these young talented players, that you have some social skills as well.
Yeah, I learned it also like back in the day when I was playing that. There's a certain point where you kind of prefer this. I would call it social intelligence.
Yeah.
Even if someone is, let's say, a couple percent better in something, but if they're socially better and help the greater cause of the team by being socially more intelligent, I feel like it uplifts the team more, and then kind of you're able to maybe extract a bit more from the team more consistently.
I think you're right, because you have to spend so many hours with each other every day, and you're even going to boot camps together, going to tournaments together. It's not only online. So yeah, if you're a few percentage worse than the other guy, but you have more social intelligence or more social skills, I think you're right. Probably it would be the better choice.
Yeah. What do you think on the younger players now? Especially you've had some experience with younger guys that are maybe less defined role wise, if you will, sort of like. Do you feel it's a good thing when a young player is more like, clay that you can mold into anything you want, or you want them to already have a certain speciality that you can tell that, hey, this guy is going to be excellent at being an entry fragger or excellent at lurking? Or do you feel like these young guys, they're still in a stage where they could easily transition from maybe not become a star opera anymore unless it's something they've done early on, but anything else within the team?
Yeah, I think that young players, of course, can transition faster because they're not that locked in what role they want.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's really important that the young players also have some thoughts about where they feel like they are shining the most. Are they shining most when they are aggressive, when they're defensive? How about when they play clutch situations? Do they play with their aim? Do they play with the brain? How do they help the team the most? So they have these kind of thoughts, so they kind of know their own strengths. And then as an IGL, you can come and say, actually, you maybe think that this is your strength, but I don't really see it as a strength. I actually feel like you could work a bit more on this, right? So this is where you can help them. I think it's important that they have some thoughts about what they are really good at.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. In terms of like, to me, it feels like players are like, because there's so much content and material nowadays to learn all the tricks and all like that small details of the game.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's something that these young players are just born with nowadays better than they were just because they can consume so much stuff? Or like, I feel like it's become more standard. The players just know more and more of these niche little details. Am I
no,
wrong?
I think you're right. I think also casters is getting better.
Yeah.
They are better at explaining now than they were like 5-7 years ago about how CS is working. They are understanding more in the deeper context, and the more they explain, the more the new beginner will also learn. So I think the backpack is more full, as you can say, from a young player today than it was maybe 5 years ago. So I think you're right.
Yeah. Let's move on to talking about teams. Like when you're sticking together as a team for a long period of time. Obviously, like the saying always goes, and I think in a lot of interviews, teams say about, we've only spent together 2-3 months or whatever, so there's a lot to learn. From an outsider perspective, maybe someone who hasn't played in competitive teams, they don't necessarily understand what is the thing. Like, why does a team need, even a year to really gel, right? Because in some instances it takes quite a long time.
Yeah.
Is there some way you can explain from your perspective what are the things that kind of happen as you stay together more longer as a team? This is aimed for kids who may be switching up players here and there, instead of sticking together for a longer period of time, for them to understand like what are the qualities that kind of longevity brings.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, first of all, if you have young players that you're working with, they will probably get better by the time goes, they will learn more from the older guys, and with their skill, their aim, and the learning that they can from the older guys, they can be much better players, and this can make the team better in general, let's say after 6 months or 1 year. Also, the first 3 to 6 months, it's a lot about making a good playbook, making everybody feel comfortable in the way you are playing, also tweaking some stuff here and there to have a better feeling of how to play against certain opponents and stuff like this. And after these 3 to 6 months, I feel like this is now where you're settled. You're not adding a lot of new stuff, but you're mainly adding small tweaks or small new stuff here and there. But you're mainly focused about how to get better as an individual in your certain roles, I would say. So this is why that the first 3 months, like the first kind of month is like the honeymoon period, right? And then you start adding some stuff because you cannot play the same all the time. This is where it gets a bit tougher because now you have a lot of stuff to remember, stuff like this. You also add some stuff that is not working and you have to figure it out. And then after these 3 months, you start focus more about yourself, I would say.
Yeah. One thing I always felt like in my past, way back when, is that when you play longer periods of time with a certain composition of players, also a lot of things become so you don't even have to say. Like you understand the reactions of players in certain situations. Like these small little niche details, which can bridge the gap between winning and losing a round even. Once you start learning each other's maneuvers and little things and things of that nature. Some of the things you can't maybe script beforehand or think of from a theory perspective.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot of different things coming into it, probably. And sometimes it's also hard to say why are things not 100% clicking within a team, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes you also make a team and you start playing together and you find out that this is a really nice team to play with, but maybe one guy is not really good enough or not working hard enough, and you need that small change to be able to take it to the next level. Kind of a little bit what we did when we brought in Magisk in Astralis back then, right? It was kind of like the missing piece because he has so much individual skill, not afraid of taking duels and going first and stuff like this. And this was exactly what we needed also role-wise to be able to make the roles fit perfectly. That was kind of really good change for us.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he wasn't even the first choice at the time, was he?
I mean, we had talks with both Config and Magisk back then, and we didn't really set on a first choice.
Okay.
But I remember me and Sonic having the talks with those two guys, and after those 2 talks, I remember we just picked Magisk because we felt like it would be the better fit, also role-wise.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just thinking also from a learning experience for those listening in that it might not even be the most obvious choice. That sometimes is the better choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's talk about goal setting. You're starting a team. What have you learned throughout your long career about setting goals? What are good goals to set for a new team? What are maybe goals that you think of retrospectively that maybe we should have taken a step back or step or 2 back?
Yeah. I mean, we used it a lot in Astralis. In Prime Astralis, we used it a lot with goal setting. Looking back, it was working really good. I feel like setting goals that is too far in the future is not always the best, but having goals that is a bit closer to you is sometimes better because this will make it. I mean, the goals is kind of what is making the process not harder but more enjoyable because you have this goal that you can kind of reach and that you can feel and see, but you're not there yet. So it's the work that you put in to reach that goal that is kind of the nice part of it, right? And I think setting goals that maybe 3 months ahead of you is pretty nice, even maybe sometimes closer. But I also think that putting too much pressure on your players or your team in general is also a bad thing because not everybody handles pressure the same way. And these young players especially is not used to be playing under a lot of pressure. So let's say they join a big organization and they get told like we need to win, like we need to start winning tournaments. It's now. Else we don't know what will happen. Like it's not good for a young player to get this kind of pressure on them, right?
Yeah.
So there's 2 points into it. Don't make a goal that will be putting too much pressure on you. Make a realistic goal, something that you can kind of feel, see, that will make a big difference for you maybe. I would say.
Okay, makes sense. I think natural next discussion point would be practicing and how to set up practice and sort of, I would imagine at least that these young guys, they just like to play. So they will probably just stack up, go queue on FACEIT, get some games going, or search for some practice somewhere and play instead of spending time on theory, on things behind the scenes, sort of preparing, making sure that they are creating purpose for the practice. What would be your tip to the young guns out there that are looking to get their competitive careers going in terms of balancing playing versus theory?
I think playing a lot, of course, is important because this is how we get better.
Yeah.
But probably only playing FACEIT, it's not the best. I think it's good to have kind of a balance. Try to use some of the new tools that is becoming more and more popular. I'm not going to mention any names because it's not a commercial, right? But there's so many tools now that you can use.
You can Google it.
You can Google it. So that would be a good idea, I think, to kind of have a balance. Also to what I used when I was a kid, like 14 years old maybe, I did watch a lot of other IGLs and I watched from their POV kind of with the map and try to understand why are they calling the way they are doing. So if you want to be an IGL, this could be something. If you want to be a star player, I would say it's important that you're up to meta. Why is Dunk getting so many kills? Is it just because of his aim, or is he getting set up by his team? How is he getting set up by his team with flashbangs, stuff like this? Steal some of his plays. Go to the server, think about some plays yourself, stuff like this. So not only playing, but also thinking is pretty important. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's easy to look at someone just owning everyone, but there's typically something also that enables the player to do all those plays, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to say that maybe it's easier when you're young, but when you get a bit older, I would say don't try to implement like 5 new things for each game because this is what you saw. But if you see one cool thing or maybe 2 cool things, try to implement these cool things in your next game. Because don't kind of take the hat and make it too full, but do it slowly.
Yeah.
Slowly adapting, slowly progressing will make you better.
And also repetition. Like
repetition, exactly.
You need to do it multiple times to really get the feel for it, understand different timings, and
that's true.
A lot of moving parts in a game of Counter-Strike, right? Yeah. So even if it doesn't work once or it works once, it doesn't really, judge it.
Yeah.
And also, in my opinion, also, just if you're putting together a team, there's a lot of opportunities nowadays to just sign up for cups, open qualifiers. ESEA Open you can go to and start competing, right? Yeah. Getting some reps in.
Yeah.
That's the only way to learn.
I think it's really important. It's also some official games, some games that means maybe more to you than FACEIT. It's bringing this extra level of seriousness and it's kind of have a different vibe to it. So it's also good experience for the young players to start doing this. And this is also where you can show yourself more than in just playing maybe FACEIT. So even though maybe your team is not winning, but if you are performing good, maybe there's a possibility that people will see you, or you can talk to some other teams and you will get picked up. And this is kind of how you climb the ladder. It's not that normal that you just 5 men in a team and you're climbing the ladder together, but people are taking an individual different path all the way. And this is probably what it will be for next generation as well.
And thinking of people queuing up in FACEIT, a lot of them also do like 80% Mirage and then 20% is the rest of the map pool, right? So I think that's also one thing to consider is map pool.
That's true, actually.
What would be your advice starting to build it up for our new team? How many maps to start with? What kind of progression should a young team take?
Yeah, that's true. I would say like if you're going for FACEIT and open qualifiers, usually it's best of one. So I'd probably have this in mind. So for a completely new team, I would probably go for 4 or 5 maps to start with, and leave out 2 that you think, okay, let's wait a bit with these and let's focus more on the other ones. Then I would also, within these 5 maps, I would also pick 1 or 2 that you would play a bit more. So, and this could be some maps that maybe most teams is not the most teams' favorite maps, because then maybe you could have an upper hand, right? So that could be something to focus about. And the way to get better as a team is also to watch how some of not only the tier 1 teams, but also a bit below this is working on these maps, because it's good to see. It can be pretty hard to copy how tier 1 teams playing if you don't have tier 1 players, I would say. So looking a bit beneath can sometimes help you.
Yeah. And I think it's also like, if you look at just the top teams doing their things, to truly understand the full thought process behind why they're doing X, Y, and Z. I mean, it might look simple, but there's typically, there can be like a lot of caveats, things to consider why they're doing X, Y, and Z.
That's true.
Might be the previous round, might be the previous matchup they've had against this team, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of things that you have to consider when you look at these teams.
That's true.
It might not just be as simple as, hey, okay, they're doing this execute, just because.
And there's a big difference between tier 1 teams and tier 2, tier 3, I would say, about how they prep and how they play in general.
How would you describe, if you want to open that up a bit, like, how, like, I want to pick your brain a bit.
Yeah, I want to say that tier 1 teams in general is trying to rely more on players' capabilities, where tier 2 teams, tier 3 teams is playing more, sometimes more structured, more in a group, not that spread out from each other, but more going like one direction from spawn, kind of. Where when you see tier 1 teams, they can do some kind of defaults, maybe with an ending goal, but I think it's a bit more default-ish to kind of let the players work the map a bit, because usually some of the best players is in the tier 1 teams, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, then a good question would be, like, if you are starting, let's imagine a team here, they are mechanically good, they are whatever 30,000 something Nilo, but not necessarily maybe very experienced when it comes to playing Team Counter-Strike. If you were those guys, what would be your tip on how to start kind of building a strat book or the way of playing? Would it be more trying to start learning how to do the defaults and then with an ending goal, or have more set stuff and play together as a unit?
I would go for more set stuff, because when you are a bit a team like those that is around 3k elo, not that known and stuff like this, I would go for more set stuff, because not a lot of people is going to prep against you, so you can actually use this set stuff and you can surprise your opponent more.
Get away with gimmicks.
Yeah, exactly. Get away with gimmicks, and it's MR12. So if you have a few gimmick rounds, you're close to GG. 13 already, right? Yeah. So that would I go for first, like some set rounds that you feel like, okay, this is really nice for us. And then, of course, you have to compare it with some defaults as well.
Yeah. Okay. I think one thing we should touch on still also is dealing with disappointment. I mean, it's part of the nature of the beast, if you will. Especially when you're young, coming up, there's most definitely going to be a lot of disappointments coming along your way. Yeah. And dealing with those individually and also as a team. What tip would you give to the young guys out there how to deal with tougher situations?
Yeah, that's a bit of a tough question, I would say.
I like giving tough questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to have some guys to spare with. So when you are in these hard situations, maybe you have someone to talk about it. Could be a friend that you know from CS, somebody that is close to you. Could also be some family, but somebody that you can talk to about those tough situations. And it doesn't really matter if it's about in-game stuff, if it's about some personal stuff, because when you are young, so many things is happening in your life. You're probably starting your career, you have some goals, you have some dreams, but you also have your personal life next to it, where a lot of stuff is also happening. So to have someone to talk to about it, it's pretty important, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And also, like, something to consider also is the fact that you have to really look around. When you're young, you're ambitious. If you have the hunger to really go, like, you really feel like I want to try to pursue. And then if you're along for other guys that you see, hey, yeah, these guys are good playing, but they don't necessarily have that, last few percentages to really push for it, right? So there has to be a moment where you realize that and then maybe move on even. Like,
yeah, that's true. That's true. If you feel like you're better than them, or if you feel like
if you have more drive, might be a similar level, but the other guys are not necessarily really driven by the fact that they want to be pro players one day, but you really are.
Yeah, that's true.
At some point, it's also good to realize this. And I'm talking about these young guys that are still like amateurs / just it's a hobby, right? But
and this is a tough part because you can have some really good friends that you're playing with, but at some point there is a chance, and the chance is pretty big, that you're not going to play with them forever, and that you're going to say bye. I cannot play with you anymore because I got a better offer, or I want to try something else. And you got to realize this. And also it's important, like before we talked about, hello. What the fuck? What up, bro?
That's a blooper and a half.
Yeah, of course. See you. It's okay. See you.
Where do you want me to?
Yeah, we just.
I think it's perfect. We can just leave it there.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's a good blooper.
That was our analyst. It's just our analyst.
He deserves that.
Yeah.
Came from the gym straight to the studio. It's funny.
Makes a lot of sense on a media day.
Yeah, that's true. That's funny. But what I wanted to say actually is that that we talked about getting into tough situations before.
Yeah.
I think it's also important that you realize when you're so young, 14, 15 years old, so many things is happening to you, that you realize that in the future, everything will be fine. Like if you reach your dream, your goal to be a top pro player, of course it will be nice. You will be really happy. But if you don't, it will be fine also. You will find something else to do. Don't put all your cards in one basket, I would say, but also have some kind of backup plan, like what would I actually be able to do if I didn't want to be a pro CS player, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I've seen so many players through my career as well, back in the day, that even playing with them in semi-pro teams, I mean, we were talking about times when money was not really big.
Yeah.
But you could tell from them that they were not built to be professionals.
Yeah.
They may have been really good at the game, but when you asked them to do anything extra, when you wanted them to spend time, jumping in for some theory, things of that nature, you could tell that they just didn't have that hunger.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Some people just don't have it, and they have other aspirations in life.
Yeah.
That's really completely fine too.
Yeah. And you can still actually be a pro player, but you're not probably going to be a top player in CS, but there is a chance that you can still be really good. If you're really talented, but you don't want to work at all, you could probably still be a top player, but probably not in a really good team.
Yeah. All right. I think we've covered a lot of the most important topics here when it comes to building a team, I feel like.
Yeah. I think I have one thing I want to add.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah. Like, because we were talking about building a team, what is the first thing that you're looking into, right? First I said talent, then some communication, social skills. I think it's also important that you don't have like one IGL and 4 talented players. You also need something with a bit more, at least if you're looking to build into a tier 2, tier 1 team, it's also important that you have something who has more experience, right? At least 2 guys with experience and then 3 really hard fraggers. But the 2 guys with experience cannot be like no fracking players also. Like not this is not possible.
Not
also.
NPCs.
No, not in CS2. Not in CS2. This is some old school stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, some experienced guys and some talent, and you mix that together. I think that's pretty important.
And I'll just want to add, at least from my perspective, I always liked it when I had let's say a personality or a guy in the team that I could sort of see as my wingman as an IGL.
Yeah. Someone that could help you.
Yes.
When you don't really feel like you have the perfect call or maybe not even the perfect day, then you have someone who can help you. That's actually really important. You also have the coach.
Yeah.
Who can
I've been the wingman and I've had a wingman in both situations. It's
true.
Was been really good. Actually, funnily enough, I was Lurpus's wingman back in the day.
He was IGL.
He was IGL. Let's say quite the character when it comes to an IGL.
Yeah. Pretty strict.
Yeah, and we were talking about giving feedback. Not the best kind of giving feedback from him, but whatever. We did pretty well back in the day, and also we sort of complimented each other weirdly, still like from a tactical perspective. So
I think I had the same with Hunden back in CSOs. I was kind of his wingman, and he was the IGL, right?
Yeah.
And he was really good at making strats. He was really good at calling in the beginning of round when to call what. And I had a really good mind about what to do in the middle of the round when things were happening. So we actually contributed each other really well back then, and that was nice to feel.
Yeah. And I'm sure both of you learned a ton about the game.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. Hey, thank you.
Thank you. If you want to take your first step into team competition, then I would actually advise you to go and sign up for the ESEA League. It's a great place for serious players to start their path coming into top CS. Go and check the link in the bio. Check the link in the bio. Link is in bio. So you have something to pick.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
All right.
That's it.
That was fun. A nice limbo.